Hi everyone, welcome to episode number 33 of the Bill Podcast, and today we'll be going through AWS, or rather Amazon Web Services. So AWS can be found as a subdomain under amazon.com, and it is basically a suite of various types of web services that helps us build web applications and scale it up as and when demand is required. Now this is a huge advantage because often enough, as shown by this little graph here, it's very hard to predict the sort of computing power that we might need because of a lot of users or suddenly a lot of storage. But Amazon Web Services helps us scale it up without any disruption. And the best part is we also pay as we grow our demand and capacity. Now let's take a brief look at all the products for under AWS, and this page, which is under /aws.amazon.com, kind of summarizes and lists all the services here. As we can see, it forms the backbone of various computing that we would require. For example, Elastic Compute Cloud, or some kind of networking, content delivery, database, or even some kind of deployment, storage, and much more. Now for today's episode, we'll be focusing on EC2, and we will just run a very simple index.html as well as Node.js application, a hello world one, as well as we will use, Elastic Beanstalk, there you go, and we will run a Sinatra Hello World application through it. And through it, you will kind of see how it is easy to deploy and get started various instances with various different configurations. Lastly, I would also like to point out that this page, which is developer tools, we will probably keep coming back to this page because of a lot of tools that are available for developers, whether it is some sort of command line tool or text editor plugin. Yep, you will be able to find all of them right here at one spot location. Finally, it is also very useful to point out this free services that come under AWS. As we experiment and learn, well, AWS provides us with some kind of free tier as a per month usage. So it's highly recommended to check this out as we experiment with many of the services here. Now, obviously, it is impossible for me to go through every single one of them, but I hope with this little Hello World applications that we will build using EC2 or even Elastic Beanstalk kind of give us a glimpse into what AWS is, and in future we'll be able to use this basic knowledge to scale up our web application. Alright, so let's get started with EC2, which is Elastic Cloud Compute. Now I am right here on the home page of AWS, aws.amazon.com, and I will log in, and after I've logged in, I will access the AWS Management Console. Now once we are inside the Management Console, once again it will give us a snapshot about all the AWS services. Like I pointed out previously, under Computing and Networking, you will see things like EC2 or Route 53, and under Deployment Management you will see things like Data Pipeline, Elastic Beanstalk. Under storage, you will see familiar names such as S3, Glacier, and so on and so forth. So let's get started with EC2, and over here we will deploy a very simple Hello World index.html. So here I am inside the EC2 console, the dashboard, and the first thing we will do is just launch an instance. So by launching an instance, we'll be basically running a virtual computer sitting somewhere else in the world that is optimized to run whatever we wish to. And this is highly configurable. So there you go. It will give us our first screen, and it will bring us through a sort of wizard. And yep, I will choose the classical one. So let's just continue from here. And basically the second screen will show us a list of Amazon machine images that we can choose from. So here, as you can see, you will see various operating systems that you can kind of build your server. You can see Linux, you can see Ubuntu. Well, we'll just go with the very first one for the simplicity and a demo. So I'll just choose this one and select it. Over here, we can also kind of provide some configurations such as the availability zone, but for us, we'll just choose the default one. Let's continue. And over here, let's now give a name to it. So I'll just put it as Hello EC2, a demo to run a simple index.html. Alright, so after this I'll continue as well. And over here basically we will need to create a private key which will be paired up with the public key that will reside in our server. So for this you can either choose an existing key pair, but for us we'll just create a new one. So I'll just put it as hello EC2 and create and download the key pair. So notice here this will be a file with an extension of .pem. The next step, we will have to create a security group for this. So just for the sake of demo, let's create a new one. I will just name it as hello, and for this we will create 3 new rules. The first one we will add is SSH. So let's add that. The second one we will add is HTTP, just so that we can serve up our index.html, and of course the last one will be HTTPS. Alright, so looks like we have added the 3 of them. So after this, let's continue. And I seem to have missed the description, so I'll just put it as demo for EC2 with index.html, and let's continue. And after this will basically give us a summary of what we are creating. So I guess it should be really fine. So let's just go ahead and launch it. And immediately you'll see that our new instance is pending and about to get started. And soon after it is ready, it will give us a green signal saying the state is running. So let's go ahead and click the checkbox right over here, and this will basically bring up an information panel at the bottom. Once the instance is ready and up and running, now we will try to log into it via SSH. So let's see how we can do that. So I am here in my command line. The very first thing we will do is notice the permission levels for the new private key that we created. So for that, I'll just do ls-al and then the pm file. And as you can see here, it is readable by all the 3 groups, but this should not be the case. So let's go ahead and change the permission level, and to do that we'll do chmod 600 and then the file name. Now when we check the permission level once again, now we are only able to read and write by the current user. So now it seems that we are all ready to go in with SSH, but before we do that, we will come back to our console, and what we need to copy is this public DNS. So this is basically the website that we will be able to view. So let's go ahead and access it. But obviously nothing will be there as of now because there's nothing ready, such as the Apache server or any files and so on and so forth. So let's first get inside that virtual computer. So to do that, we'll do SSH and then -I, and then we will kind of reference to the private key, and then we will do EC2-user at, and then the public DNS link that we copied. So let's just press enter and see what happens. For the very first time, it will add the private key to the authenticated list, so obviously yes, and it will add it to the list of known hosts. Right, so looks like we are inside the computer now. So as usual, you can run all the various commands such as ls, or you can even go up one directory such as cd ... and maybe one more directory cd ... And after I clear the screen, you can even do ls, and it will give you a list of folders and files inside it, just like any other computer. Now, as it suggested here, it's probably good to do a sudo yum update so that it can kind of update all the security and other updates available. So I'll go ahead and do a sudo yum update. Right, so looks like all the updates are done. So let me just clear the screen once again. Next, we will install HTTPD so that it can run the Apache server. So let's see. For this, we will do sudo yum install HTTPD. Right, so looks like it has installed. So let me just clear the screen once again. So after this, we will go inside the folder, which will be cd var. So let me just tab yes, and then we have www, and then finally HTML. Let's look at the folder and what it contains. Obviously, it will be completely blank. Now over here, now we will try to put and copy here an index.html file. So let's go back, and I have already created the file here in the Dropbox folder, public folder in AWS. So I'm just going to open this up in Sublime Text. And as you can see, this is a very simple HTML file we have here. So what I'm going to do is open this up in the Finder. There you go. And I'm going to copy the public URL. And I'm going to come back to my command line, back to the virtual computer in EC2. And all I'll do is wget and then the Dropbox public URL. Alright, sorry, it is permission denied, so I will do sudo wget and then the Dropbox public URL. Alright, so now when I do an ls, yes, that's right, index.html is right there. So let me just clear the screen once again. Now once again, notice here that the public DNS is not valid as of now, but all we need to do is come back to our HTML folder, and then we need to do sudo and then service httpd and then start it. This will basically start the server. There you go. So it gives us the status that it is okay. Now let's come back to our browser and refresh it. And yes, there you go. Hello world, a simple HTML file in AWS. So was that the one we prepared for? Yep. From the file, the code that we wrote in HTML, this is the file that we are serving up. So as you can see, it's really easy to get an instance started up and then quickly configure it and get it up running. So I'll go ahead and terminate this instance. Alright, so next up, now we will run a Node.js Hello World application instead of a just static HTML. So here I have already prepared an instance. So I did basically the same thing like before, but I have installed a certain amount of stuff. So why don't I first go ahead and get inside with SSH. So once again, I'll copy the public DNS, come back to my command line, and I'll do SSH-I and the private key file, and then similarly EC2-user at the public DNS. And yes, I am inside the virtual computer once again. So as usual, the very first thing we will do is a sudo yum update, and I already updated it before, so it is all done. Now there are a few things that we'll need to install, and the very first one of them is the GCC, C++ as well as make, and I have already done that, so I will not go ahead and do it. The next one is also sudo yum install git, so that it will install the git version control, and I have also already done that. And finally, I will also go ahead and clone the git repository of Node.js. So I'll just go there directly and clone it, and I have also done that already. And typically after you go download the git clone version, you will have to do cd node, and then you will also do git checkout, and we will check out the latest version v0.8.19. And finally, as instructed, we will go inside the config file and do make. Now this command itself will take quite a bit of time, so I already went ahead and did that. And the final command will be sudo make install, which I also did. So finally, after this, we will need to add a path. So to do that, firstly, we will act as a root. So we'll do sudo su, and we will open up a file with vim. So to do that, we will do vim/etc and then /sudoers. So let's open up the file, and this will be in vim. We will particularly look for the line that starts with default secure path. And there you go. This is the line that we were looking at, which is default secure path as bins, then /bin/usr, but right at the end we will add in this little thing, which is :/usr/local/bin. Now I have already done that, but in your case, if it is a brand new instance, it should not be there, so you will have to go ahead and add it. So after this, we will press the escape key, and then we will do :wq and then an exclamation mark, which means to say save and exit. And the very last thing we will do is install the npm package, which is the Node Package Manager, and we'll do a git clone, and then we will get the git URL. So I've already done that, so I won't go ahead and do it. So after you basically get the package, you will have to do something very similar. You have to cd it into the npm folder, and then you have to do sudo make install. And similarly, I already did that, so I will not go through this. But finally, if you have also done it, if you do an npm version check, yes, it should give you a version number saying that, yep, it is installed. So lastly, just to recap, I did a Git installation, I also did the Node installation, and finally I did the npm, the Node package manager. So it looks like we are all set. Let's come back to our local files, and over here I have created a very simple hello world for Node.js, which basically I just took it from the nodejs.org website for a simple hello world just as a demo, and I'm going to copy this into the folder. Right, so firstly let me just exit as root and go back to the current user. So let me just go 2 folders up so that I'm in the topmost directory, and over here if I list it, I will see this folder called var. So let me just go inside the var now and clear the screen. And once I'm inside the var folder, here I'll create a directory called sites. So if permission is denied, I'll just do mkdir, and let me just cd into the site folder. Just like what I did to the index.html, I will go ahead and copy the Dropbox public link, come back, and here I'll do sudo wget and then the public URL for the file. Now if I do an ls, server.js should be there. Yep, it is. As a final note, we will have to do some sort of port forwarding. So here I'll go and copy and paste the command, which will kind of say that, hey, forward everything from port 80 to port 8080, which is the default port for Node.js. Let me just go ahead and do that. Come back to EC2 and let's try to access this public DNS first. Now obviously from our index.html experience, we know that nothing will happen because no server has been started. So let's just go back to our EC2 instance, SSH logged in instance, and now we will do node and then server.js. So once we do that, if we come back to our website and we refresh it, and there you go, we have hello world in a Node.js from AWS. Now one thing to note is if we log out of SSH and we try to visit this website once again, guess what? It will not be available anymore because Node server is no longer available. So for this, we will install something called Forever, which is by Nodejitsu, which is a command line tool for ensuring that a given script runs continuously forever, which means even if we log out of the SSH, it will still continue running. So if you want to do that, you can come back to our command line once again. We just clear it, and this time we can do sudo npm install forever, and we can install it in globally. So I have already done that. So if you do that properly and if you do a forever, it should give us all the help commands. So as you can see, it will give us the help that if you do forever start, it will start the script as a daemon. So finally, as a note on Node.js, what we will do is forever start server.js. And there you go, it has started once again. So now if we visit the website, yep, we get the familiar hello world in Node.js, and we can now even exit our virtual computer and come back to our local computer. And now if we continue visiting it, guess what? It will still be there. As you can see, EC2 allows us to serve up different types of technology, whether it is Node.js or PHP or Ruby, all is possible with different configurations. So let me just go ahead and stop it. Now the difference between stop is later on you'll be able to start it once again, but if you terminate it, the entire instance will be removed. So let me just go ahead and stop it for this one. And finally, we will go through AWS Elastic Beanstalk. And finally, we will go through AWS Elastic Beanstalk. And this will basically allow us to quickly deploy and manage our application in the AWS cloud. So let's see how that happens. So the very first thing we will do is install the command line application for Elastic Beanstalk. And to do that, we will just search it under the developer tools, and we can just go ahead and download it. Now, after we download it, it will be as a folder like this. And if you go inside the folder, there are various different tools such as the Elastic Beanstalk itself, as well as an API, as well as the AWS dev tools. Now here they will recommend you to put it in a folder of your choice. typically a folder where you fire off other programs. So I have kept it in /usr/local. Maybe you have your own way of doing it, so go ahead. And after this, we will also have to add the path to our bash profile or our Z shell profile. So let's go ahead. This is my Z shell profile, and there you go. I have added the path, which is /usr/local or whatever the path you choose to do, and then it will be AWS Elastic Beanstalk /EB, and then your operating system. So in my case, it will be Mac OS Python 2.7. So after you have added it to your bash profile or your Z shell profile, you will have to restart the command line. And after you restart your command line interface, if everything goes right, if you do a EB and then -- version, it should be EB -- version, guess what? It will give you that, hey, it is Elastic Beanstalk command line interface version 2.3.0. Similarly, you can also do EB -- help, and it will give you all sorts of commands to do that. Alright, so let's go ahead and initiate an Elastic Beanstalk for our Hello Sinatra project. So once again, I will come back to my text editor, and here I have the 3 files. The very first one is a config file, which basically says that, hey, run hello.rb using the Sinatra application. And next is the gem file, which basically specifies the Ruby packages that are needed, and in this case, it will be just Sinatra, very simple one. And finally, it is a hello.rb, which will basically just sprout out, hey, hello world, and it will get the root. Right, so it's as simple as that. So with this, I will come back to my command line, and then I'll just initiate a Git repository. So with that, git init, git add, and git commit with an initial commit as the commit message. Very simple one. After this, I'll go ahead and initiate a Beanstalk. So to do that, I'll do EB and then init. And I have already added this credentials and access key and so on and so forth. You can also visit this website. So let's go ahead and visit that very quickly on how to do this. And basically, it will bring you to our own profile page where we can access our keys and other information that it's required. So you can go ahead and copy paste the numbers here. So let's go ahead and enter. And it will also ask for the secret key access, which I have already done that. And next is the region. So for me, let's see, maybe I'll just put Singapore, or maybe you can put some regions that you want your application to be viewed in. And yes, I will keep the name as Hello Sinatra, and the environment name can be -env. And finally, I'll select a solution stack. So because Sinatra will run on Ruby, I'll just select the latest Ruby on a 64-bit. So for me, it will be option number 16. No, I will not need a database for now, just a simple application, and that's it. So if you see what are the changes, so let's do a change. So I'll do a git status. You'll see that a little git ignore file has been added. Let's go ahead and see what does Elastic Beanstalk do. So there you go, the git ignore file has been added, and it adds a dot folder called .elastic beanstalk, and if you go inside, it will add a little configuration file which basically consists of all the things that we were answering through the options. Alright, so looks like I can go ahead and add it. So git add and git commit initiated a git ignore file. Alright, so I have already committed the changes. There are no changes anymore. And finally, all I have to do is EB start, and this will take quite a bit of time as it will prepare our application to be viewed, and at the end of it, it will sprout out a URL. So let's see what happens. There you go, application name is Hello Sinatra. It will even start up an Amazon S3 storage bucket environment. So there you go, the EB start command has finally completed. So let's go ahead and see what it has done. So finally, it has created an environment, then it created a load balancer, security group, auto scaling, also an EC2 instance. And finally, after all this, it even gives us a link that the application is available. So let's go ahead and visit it. And there you go, a brand new welcome page saying that, hey, this is your first Elastic Beanstalk Ruby application running on the AWS cloud. It even gives us some links on how to run our applications, for example, either Rails or Sinatra that we did, and so on and so forth. Now notice this is just the default welcome screen. So we will have to now go ahead and push our repository to the server. So to do that, we will simply do git aws.push. So once we do that, notice what happens. It will push the entire Git repository to the server. And now when we come back to this website and refresh it, guess what? Instead of the congratulations page, it is replaced by the simple hello world in Sinatra. Right, so that was a hello world example in Sinatra with Elastic Beanstalk that allows us to easily deploy our applications to the AWS cloud with a version control. So now if we want to stop, we can just do eb stop, and yes, you can terminate your environment if you wish to. And yes, it has stopped the environment as it is deleting the security group, the load balancer, the auto scaling, CloudWatch, and much more. And finally, we can also do eb delete so that we can delete the entire application as well. Alright, so that basically brings us to the end of a little introduction to AWS, especially for EC2 and Elastic Beanstalk, which might come in handy whenever we want to create instances of variable configurations and then fire it up and then start a virtual server. And also it comes with a lot of other services that is highly recommended for you to check out. For example, S3 or RDS for dynamic databases, both for NoSQL and SQL. And finally, let's just go through some of the peripheral websites that might be useful as well. One of them is actually the YouTube channel for Amazon Web Services. It comes with a lot of tutorial and instructions and talks about AWS and various products. So I highly recommend you to check out this video series in YouTube channel. Next one are the two blog posts where I actually picked up on how to install Node.js. So do check out these two blog posts. This one basically goes through the complete guide on how to install Node.js and set it up on EC2. And the second one as well is running Node.js on a Linux micro instance, exactly what we went through as well. Finally, do check out this getting started with the AWS command line interface. As you saw that AWS does not only provide the web version of Management Console, but also the command line version of it, which makes it a lot programmatic to set up configurations easily and store them for future uses. And of course, this is also the final instruction from where I picked up on how to deploy a Ruby Sinatra application. Right, finally, so for the build link of the episode, it is a practical guide to HTML and CSS by Shay Hao. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. I know that this might be a beginner's tutorial with a little bit of advanced, but I found this one very well written and it's good to do some revision once in a while as well. So thanks to Shay Hao for creating this wonderful guide. Do go through it, both advanced, and I believe he is also still creating a lot of new content for this tutorial. And that's it for this week's episode of Build Podcast. Happy learning and firing up various instances on AWS and having scalable and flexible web applications. Goodbye and see you next week.